The aftermath of the battle inside Virelia's energy core chamber left the valley eerily calm. The rogue faction had retreated, their crystalline armor cracked and their confidence shaken. Elias, Drake, and Lyra emerged from the chamber, the glow of the planet's energy reflecting softly across their faces. For the first time, the air felt lighter, almost peaceful. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the horizon, her hands steady and glowing faintly. "The rogue faction is gone, at least for now," she said. "But their ambition, it will not disappear easily. Other factions may try, seeking the planet's power." Elias adjusted his gear, scanning the area for any lingering threats. "Then we prepare. We understand the planet, its energy, and its patterns. Knowledge is the best defense. And with your guidance, we can ensure no one misuses this power again." Lyra studied him, her expression thoughtful. "You humans, you are remarkable. You do not rely solely on strength. You rely on understanding, courage, and the will to act. Even in the face of overwhelming danger, you remain calm. And it inspires others." Elias smiled faintly. "Courage is not the absence of fear, Lyra. It's moving forward despite it. And humans survive by learning, adapting, and trusting one another. That is how we thrive." Lyra's hands, which had trembled during their first encounter, were now steady. She realized that the human before her had changed something fundamental in her understanding of life. Courage was not just physical, it could ripple outward, influencing others in ways she had never considered. The two walked toward the edge of the valley, where the green light of Virelia's sky met jagged cliffs. The crystal plants swayed gently, as if acknowledging the bond that had formed between human and alien. "Your people," Lyra began slowly, "they are not like any I have encountered. You inspire even without intending to. Your presence here, it has changed me." Elias looked at her calmly. "And you have shown me that intelligence and power must be tempered with understanding and care. Alone, neither of us could have faced the rogue faction. Together, we accomplished what seemed impossible." The valley echoed with their voices, and for a moment it felt as though the planet itself listened, recognizing the alliance that had been forged. Lyra extended her hands, letting the faint glow spread across the valley. "Perhaps it is time," she said, "to bring my people to understand humans as I have come to. We have underestimated you, your courage, your ingenuity. It is unmatched." Elias nodded. "Then we show them. But not through force. Through cooperation, understanding. We share knowledge, we solve problems together, and we build trust. That is how progress is made, how alliances endure." The alien woman's violet eyes glimmered with a newfound respect. "I will speak to the leaders of my people. They will listen to me because they will see what I have seen. Humans are exceptional, not because of raw power, but because of their will, their courage, and their mind." Elias chuckled softly. "And perhaps your people will teach humans things we could never achieve on our own. That is the beauty of collaboration. It makes everyone stronger." As the sun began to dip beneath Virelia's jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the valley, Lyra and Elias climbed a ridge to survey the land. The planet stretched endlessly before them, full of mysteries, energy, and untapped potential. "I never imagined I would find a human who could stand here without fear," Lyra admitted, her hands now steady at her sides. "You are unlike anyone I have met. Even my people, with all our knowledge, could not have faced the energy core and the rogue faction as you have. Your courage, it has changed everything." Elias smiled faintly, looking out over the valley. "Humans face the unknown every day. We do not always succeed, but we keep moving forward. And when we work with others, whether human or alien, we can accomplish even more. That is what makes us strong." Lyra nodded, letting the words settle. For the first time, she felt a sense of hope for her people. If humans could inspire courage, patience, and understanding, then perhaps the future of interstellar relations could be brighter than she had ever imagined. As night fell, the valley was bathed in soft green light from the planet's sky. Crystalline plants pulsed gently, mirroring the energy of the core chamber and the growing bond between the two allies. They set up a temporary camp near the edge of the valley, careful to remain alert but also allowing themselves a moment of rest. "You've taught me something important," Lyra said quietly, staring at the glowing crystals around them. "Courage is more than facing danger. It is a choice. It can inspire others. It can change outcomes that seem impossible." Elias nodded. "And intelligence alone is not enough. It must be paired with courage, empathy, and the willingness to act. That is how humans thrive, and that is how we can work with others to face challenges beyond our own worlds. Lyra's hands twitched faintly, a subtle reminder of the first time she had met him, and the tremor that had marked her surprise. "I will remember this," she said softly. "I will remember you, and I will remember what humans are capable of. My people will remember as well." Elias glanced at her with a calm smile. "Then the future will be brighter, thanks to courage and understanding. Together we can face anything." The night passed quietly, the energy of Virilia resonating with a gentle hum that mirrored the harmony forming between human and alien. When dawn arrived, the valley was alive with soft light, the crystals reflecting the new day. Elias and Lyra prepared to move forward, ready to explore deeper into the planet, uncover more secrets, and strengthen the alliance they had begun. Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes bright. "We will show my people what humans can do. Not through force, but through example. Your courage, your mind, your heart, they are extraordinary, and now I understand that humans are a force to be reckoned with, not because of strength, but because of will." Elias nodded. "And they will see that humans can be trusted allies. That is the most important thing. Courage and trust together can achieve what power alone cannot." The bond between them had grown stronger through every challenge: the first meeting, the storm, the rogue faction, and the energy core. Now it was unshakable. Lyra's people would see the truth. Humans were not only brave, but capable of inspiring greatness in others, challenging assumptions and building alliances across worlds. As they began walking toward the heart of Virelia, Elias looked around at the valley. "This planet has so much to teach us, and so much to protect. With your help, Lyra, we can ensure that knowledge is used wisely, and that no one misuses this power." Lyra's hands glowed softly, steady and confident. "Together we can. Your courage and my understanding. Combined, we are capable of anything. My people will see that humans are exceptional, and perhaps they will learn to trust them as I have learned to trust you." The sun rose higher, casting a warm green glow over the jagged peaks. Elias and Lyra moved forward, ready to face the mysteries of Virelia together, confident in their skills, their bond, and their courage. They had faced impossible odds, learned from one another, and proved that fearlessness and empathy could create lasting alliances, even across species. For the first time, Lyra felt hope for her people, for the planet, and for the future of interstellar cooperation. The memory of trembling hands, hers and others, had been replaced with steady resolve. Humans were capable of inspiring courage, and together they could face anything the universe might throw at them. Elias glanced at Lyra and said softly, "This is just the beginning. There are more planets, more civilizations, more challenges, but with courage, curiosity, and trust, humans and allies like you can face them all." Lyra smiled fully, her violet eyes glowing with confidence. "Then we move forward together, fearless, focused, and ready for what lies ahead." And so, on the planet of Virelia, human courage and alien insight had created a partnership stronger than any individual force. The rogue faction was defeated, the energy core stabilized, and a new understanding had been born. The story of Elias Drake and Lyra would become a legend among their people, a testament to bravery, intelligence, and the power of trust. The valley pulsed gently with energy, as if the planet itself approved. Elias and Lyra continued walking side by side into the unknown, knowing that together they could face any challenge, unlock every secret, and inspire courage across the stars. The story of fearlessness, trust, and unity had reached a turning point, but for Elias, Lyra, and the people of their worlds, the adventure was only beginning. The narrow canyon opened into a vast chamber deep within Virelia's mountains, a place that seemed almost alive. Crystalline structures covered the walls, pulsating with energy and rhythmic patterns. In the center, a massive energy core floated, radiating power that made the air hum and shimmer. Elias Drake and Lyra stepped forward cautiously, their senses heightened. "This is it," Lyra whispered, awe in her voice. "The energy core, it is beyond anything I have ever witnessed. Its power could reshape the planet or destroy it." Elias adjusted his visor, studying the core carefully. "Then we need to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And judging by the state of the canyon, the rogue faction is already aware of it." Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "They will try to seize it, but they do not understand the energy fully. Even my people are limited in our ability to control it. It is unpredictable, dangerous, Elias nodded. Then we use what we know and what we can learn together. You channel the energy, I handle strategy and improvisation. We can do this. The rogue faction's arrival was swift. Crystalline warriors burst through the entrance, their armor reflecting the glowing energy from the core. They moved with precision, aiming to capture it before Elias and Lyra could react. The ground trembled beneath them, resonating with the core's power. Stay calm, Elias said, moving deliberately to assess the attackers' positions. Predict their moves. Watch for patterns. We can use this chamber to our advantage. Lyra extended her hands, glowing faintly as she began sensing the energy fields. It is unstable. One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic release. I will focus my power, but you must act quickly and creatively. The balance is delicate. Elias glanced at the floating core, its pulsing light reflected in his eyes. Understood. Let's begin. The battle erupted with sudden intensity. Elias darted between crystalline pillars, using reflective surfaces to confuse the attackers. He hurled devices that emitted bursts of energy, creating temporary shields and distractions. Lyra moved alongside him, directing precise psychic blasts that disrupted the rogue faction's formation without destabilizing the core. You are bold beyond reason, Lyra murmured, her hands trembling slightly as she maintained control over her powers. Your methods. Unpredictable, but effective, Elias grinned faintly. Sometimes being unpredictable is the only way to survive. The rogue faction quickly adapted, coordinating their attacks to surround them. One massive alien lunged at Lyra, energy weapons crackling in its hands. Elias reacted instantly, leaping forward and using a reflective crystal shard to redirect the blast harmlessly into a wall. The impact sent shards scattering, momentarily stunning the attacker. Lyra seized the opportunity, directing a precise surge of psychic energy at the surrounding attackers. Rocks lifted, energy pulses redirected, and the rogue faction stumbled, unprepared for the combined human-alien strategy. Yet the energy core's pulse grew stronger, making the air heavy and electric, testing their concentration. You handle strategy well, Lyra admitted, her voice steady despite the trembling of her hands. I have never seen a human move with such clarity amidst chaos. Elias ducked a swinging crystalline arm, keeping his eyes on both the attackers and the core. Humans survive by adapting fast. We improvise. And sometimes, we inspire others to act beyond their limits. That's what we're doing now. The rogue faction pressed closer, but Elias noticed a pattern. The attackers moved in waves, leaving small openings with each strike. Lyra, he called, focus on the gaps between their waves. I'll guide them into positions that give us leverage. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. She raised her hands and directed a controlled psychic surge. Energy lifted rocks and pillars, creating barriers and redirecting attackers into confined spaces. The rogue faction's formation faltered as Elias used the openings to disarm, confuse, and redirect them. One particularly large attacker reached the floating core, attempting to absorb its energy. Elias acted instantly, throwing a reflective device that created a bright flash, temporarily blinding it. Lyra followed with a precise psychic push, sending the attacker tumbling backward without touching the core. You are remarkable, Lyra said softly, her hands finally steadying as she realized the synergy between them. Your courage, your mind. It complements my power, Elias smiled. And your control and insight make my tactics possible. Alone, neither of us could achieve this. Together, we are stronger. The rogue faction regrouped for a final push, more aggressive than before. Their leader, massive and imposing, advanced toward the core. Lyra's hands trembled once more, sensing the immense danger. Elias stepped forward, placing himself between the leader and the core. I'm not afraid, he said firmly, voice carrying through the chamber. The leader froze for a brief moment, confused by the human's calmness and determination. Lyra's hands shook, sensing the effect his courage had on the opponent. For the first time, the leader hesitated, unsure of how to act. Elias gestured to Lyra. Now, concentrate, together. Lyra took a deep breath, focusing fully. Her hands glowed with controlled, intense energy. Elias acted with perfect timing, using the terrain and reflective crystals to redirect the rogue leader's attacks, while guiding the energy flow safely around the core. The combined force of human ingenuity and alien psychic power overwhelmed the rogue faction, forcing them to retreat from the chamber. As the last attacker fled, the energy core stabilized, pulsating calmly once more. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of power flowing through the crystalline walls. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, breathing heavily but steady. Lyra's hands finally stilled, her violet eyes filled with awe. I cannot believe it. You faced the danger, and it changed the outcome. Your bravery, your calmness, it is extraordinary. Elias smiled faintly. That's what humans do. We face what others fear, adapt, and keep moving forward. Sometimes courage is simple. Sometimes it's bold. Either way, it works. Lyra stepped closer, observing him carefully. You have shown me. Humans are capable of more than I imagined. You inspire even the strongest to reconsider their limits. I feel changed, Ilias nodded. And you've shown me that understanding and power can be controlled with patience and focus. Together we can achieve more than either of us could alone. For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the energy core pulse with calm, steady light. The rogue faction had been driven back, but the chamber itself reminded them that Virelia's secrets were far from fully revealed. They had survived the challenge, but many mysteries remained. Lyra finally spoke, her hands relaxed. Tomorrow we must explore further. The energy core is just one of many sources of power on this planet. If we can understand them, we may prevent future conflicts and discover knowledge lost to time. Elias nodded. And we'll do it together. Fearless, careful, and always curious. That's how humans face the unknown, and how we can thrive with allies like you. A gentle pulse of light flowed from the core, illuminating the chamber with soft patterns. It was as if the planet itself acknowledged their teamwork, their courage, and the unity between human ingenuity and alien power. Lyra's violet eyes reflected the glow, and for the first time her hands trembled not from fear but from admiration and hope. Your people, humans, she murmured. Perhaps you are truly exceptional. I have never met anyone like you before, and yet, I see now that greatness is not just in power. It is in choice, courage, and the willingness to act. Elias looked at her, calm and resolute. And perhaps aliens like you can teach humans things we never imagined. We only need to open our minds, trust, and work together. As they prepared to leave the chamber, a soft hum echoed through the walls, vibrating with a sense of promise and possibility. The rogue faction was gone for now, but the energy core remained, a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, intelligence, and trust worked in harmony. Together, Elias and Lyra stepped out of the chamber, stronger and more connected than ever. They had faced a challenge that tested both human ingenuity and alien power, and they had prevailed. The planet held more secrets, more threats, and more opportunities for discovery, but now they knew they could face them side by side. The hum of the crystals followed them as they exited the chamber, a quiet affirmation that their alliance had changed more than just the outcome of a battle. It had changed the way they understood each other, and the possibilities for their worlds. Elias glanced at Lyra, his expression steady and calm. This is only the beginning. There is so much more to learn, and so many more challenges to face. But with courage and cooperation, we can achieve anything. Lyra's violet eyes met his, and for the first time she smiled fully, her hands steady and glowing softly. Then we move forward together. Fearless, focused, and united, let us see what Virelia truly holds. And so on the planet of Virelia, human ingenuity and alien power had joined as one, forming a force stronger than either could have imagined. The rogue faction had been defeated, the energy core stabilized, and a bond had been forged that would shape the future of both species. The chamber fell silent, but the pulse of the energy core remained, a reminder that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome even the greatest challenges, and that the story of Elias Drake and Lyra was far from over. The following morning, the cavern was bathed in pale green light from the alien sky above. Elias Drake and Lyra had spent the night planning their exploration of Virelia, reviewing the energy patterns of the planet and the ancient devices scattered around them. A quiet understanding had settled between them, but neither could ignore the underlying tension. Something stirred beneath the surface, waiting. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the horizon as they exited the cavern. The energy readings are growing stronger, she said, her hands glowing faintly as she gestured toward the valleys below. It is unstable. The planet reacts to our presence more than I anticipated, and something else approaches. Elias adjusted his gear, glancing at the valley below. Strange shadows moved along the jagged cliffs, almost blending with the green light. I see it. Let's find out what we're dealing with. They began moving cautiously, using the rocky terrain for cover. The shadows shifted closer, and soon a group of alien figures became visible. They were unlike Lyra, taller, with jagged, crystalline armor and glowing red eyes. Their presence radiated aggression. Elias's heart did not falter. Instead, he observed carefully, calculating their movements and patterns. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, sensing the hostility. "They are the rogue faction I warned you about," she said. "They seek to control the planet's energy for their own purposes. If they succeed, it will not only destroy this land but threaten neighboring systems as well." Elias nodded, studying their formation. "We won't let that happen. We need a plan." Lyra focused her psychic energy, sending subtle pulses into the surroundings to detect hidden traps and energy fluctuations. "Their strength is formidable," she warned, "but your presence is unusual. Even to them. They are confused by your calmness. Use it to our advantage," Elias smiled faintly. "Then we'll turn their confusion into opportunity." As the rogue faction advanced, Elias led the approach with confidence. His movements were deliberate and calculated, drawing the enemy's attention while Lyra positioned herself to channel her psychic abilities. She moved gracefully, her violet eyes glowing brighter as she manipulated the ambient energy around them. Yet she felt a tremor in her hands, a mixture of anticipation, fear, and admiration for the human standing beside her. The first wave of attackers lunged, their crystalline armor glinting in the green light. Elias sidestepped with remarkable agility, using the terrain to his advantage. He threw rocks and small energy devices from his pack, creating diversions and openings. Lyra followed, her psychic energy lifting debris and redirecting it with precision, keeping the attackers off balance. "You are surprisingly effective," Lyra admitted, her hands trembling as she focused. "Your unpredictability, it disrupts them," Elias grinned. "That's the human way. We adapt, improvise, and keep moving. Fear doesn't stop us, it makes us sharper." Despite their combined efforts, the rogue faction pressed forward relentlessly. Their crystalline armor absorbed most attacks, and their movements were coordinated, as if guided by a single hive mind. Lyra's powers alone could not hold them off for long. Elias realized they needed a new approach, something neither pure human ingenuity nor psychic skill alone could achieve. "Lyra," he called, ducking behind a rock as a strike missed him by inches. "We need to combine our strengths. I'll distract and divide them. You channel your energy in precise bursts. We hit their coordination, not just their numbers." Lyra's hands trembled as she nodded. "Very well, but your method is dangerous. I am not accustomed to seeing humans place themselves in such direct risk." "I trust you," Elias replied simply, "and I trust my own judgment. Let's do this." The plan was set in motion. Elias moved with boldness, drawing the attention of several attackers. He leapt over rocks, ducked under energy strikes, and used the terrain to confuse and mislead them. Each move was calculated, but from the enemy's perspective it looked like chaos. Lyra watched him closely, her hands glowing brighter as she concentrated, directing focused blasts of psychic energy at critical points, disrupting the coordination of the rogue faction. The effect was immediate. The attackers stumbled, unsure of how to respond to this unusual combination of human cunning and alien power. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Incredible. Your method. It works." Elias nodded, using a thrown device to create a flash of light that further disoriented the rogue faction. "Keep going. We're not done yet." The fight intensified as Elias led the attackers into a narrow canyon, where their numbers became a disadvantage. Lyra's powers surged, lifting rocks and creating energy barriers that forced the rogue faction into confined positions. One by one, their formation began to crumble. Yet the challenge was far from over. These were skilled warriors, and they would not yield easily. Lyra's hands trembled more than ever, though she did not stop. The human's calmness beside her gave her strength, but also a strange tension. His fearlessness pushed her to achieve more than she thought possible. She realized that humans could inspire even the most disciplined alien to question their own limits. Elias darted forward, narrowly avoiding a strike aimed at Lyra. "Watch your left," he called, and she adjusted her energy flow just in time to redirect the attack. The rogue faction faltered again, struggling to adapt to the unpredictable human tactics combined with precise psychic strikes. Then, one of the leaders, a massive alien with jagged armor and glowing red eyes, stepped forward, blocking their path. Its energy radiated power, and even Lyra felt a surge of tension. Elias met its gaze without hesitation. "I'm not afraid of you," he said firmly, his voice carrying over the canyon. The alien leader paused, momentarily confused by the human's calmness. Lyra's hands trembled uncontrollably, sensing the disruption in its energy. Elias' courage was creating a ripple effect, shaking even the strongest adversary's focus. "Focus your energy, Lyra," Elias shouted. "We can finish this together." Taking a deep breath, Lyra directed a concentrated blast of psychic energy at the leader, while Elias used a makeshift device to amplify the effect. The combined force sent the alien stumbling backward, breaking the cohesion of the remaining faction. The other attackers, seeing their leader falter, began retreating into the canyon, unsure of how to continue. Elias and Lyra moved forward cautiously, pressing their advantage. With a final surge of coordinated effort, they forced the rogue faction to retreat completely, leaving the valley in eerie silence. The energy from the planet began to settle, and the crystal plants returned to their gentle hum, as if acknowledging the victory. Lyra lowered her glowing hands, finally stilling them. I cannot believe it," she whispered. "Your bravery, and it is unlike anything I have seen. You faced danger without fear, and it changed everything." Elias nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "That's what humans do. We adapt, we learn, and we face what others fear. Sometimes it's courage, sometimes it's stubbornness. Either way it works." Lyra's eyes softened, filled with admiration. "You have shown me. Humans are more than I imagined. Your determination, your calmness, it inspires even those with great power to rethink what is possible." Elias smiled faintly. "And you've shown me that aliens can teach humans things we could never achieve alone. Together we are stronger than we could be separately." The two stood in the quiet valley, catching their breath. The rogue faction was gone, the storm had passed, and a new understanding had formed. Lyra's hands no longer trembled from fear, but from the realization that human courage could challenge even the most formidable forces. "We have much to learn from each other," Lyra said finally, "and much to do. The rogue faction may return, and there are more secrets hidden within this planet's energy, but I feel hopeful." Elias nodded, glancing at the horizon where the green sky met jagged mountains. "Hope is the first step, and fearlessness paired with understanding is the next." Lyra allowed herself a small, genuine smile. "Then we move forward, together." As they prepared to explore deeper into the planet, the hum of the crystal plants seemed to resonate with their unity. They were an unlikely team, a human and an alien, facing challenges that neither could overcome alone. But together, they had discovered something more powerful than any energy field or psychic ability: trust, courage, and the potential to inspire one another to greatness. And so, on the planet of Virelia, the challenge had been met, the rogue faction defeated for now, and a partnership forged in the heat of danger. Elias and Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The planet held more mysteries, more dangers, and more lessons, but now they would face them side by side, unshaken and unafraid. The wind picked up across the jagged valleys of Virelia, carrying a strange electric hum that made the crystal plants sway like ocean waves. Elias, Drake, and Lyra moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, their eyes scanning every ridge and shadow. Though they had just met, a quiet understanding had formed between them. Elias's fearlessness and Lyra's curiosity created an unusual balance, one that made the alien woman feel both unsettled and fascinated. "This planet, it reacts to us," Lyra said, her voice soft yet tense. "I have never felt energy so alive, so aware. Even my people avoid this place." Elias nodded, adjusting his helmet as the hum grew stronger. "It's like it's listening to us. Or testing us. Either way, we need shelter soon before it gets worse." Lyra's hands glowed faintly as she extended them toward a nearby cliff. A soft, pulsating light radiated from her palms, illuminating a narrow passage that led to a cavern. "There," she said. "We can wait there, but it may not be safe for long." Elias followed, stepping carefully over jagged rocks. Inside, the cavern opened into a large chamber filled with alien technology. Strange crystalline structures lined the walls, humming with energy. The light from Lyra's hands reflected off the surfaces, casting patterns like a moving mosaic. Elias crouched to examine one of the crystals. These look like they're holding energy, he said. But it's unlike any power source I've seen before. It's almost alive. Lyra studied him with a raised eyebrow. You are not afraid of it? Not afraid, Elias replied, glancing at her. Curious. Fear doesn't help me learn. Understanding does. Her violet eyes widened slightly. Even her own people sometimes hesitated in the presence of unknown energy. But here was a human, calm, observant, and utterly unafraid. Lyra felt her hands tremble just thinking about it, though now it was a different kind of tremble, one of respect and disbelief. As they explored the cavern, the wind outside turned into a violent storm. Strange green lightning cracked across the sky, striking the jagged peaks. The sound echoed like thunder through the valley, shaking the cavern walls. Lyra's hands glowed brighter, sensing the energy's rising intensity. The storm. It is reacting to our presence, she said. We must remain calm. Any sudden fear or movement could trigger the energy fields. Elias smiled faintly. I think we're doing that already. Despite the tension, he moved confidently, examining the crystals and ancient symbols etched into the walls. Lyra followed him, intrigued by his focus and composure. She had studied humans from afar, but seeing one interact directly with unknown alien energy was unlike anything she had imagined. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but there was something remarkably steady about him, something that demanded attention and trust. Hours passed as the storm raged outside. Elias and Lyra spoke little at first, letting the quiet hum of the cavern settle their minds. Then Elias broke the silence. Tell me about your people, he said. The Virelians. What is your culture like? Lyra hesitated. Sharing personal information with strangers was rare for her species, especially with one so different. But something in Elias's calm demeanor encouraged openness. We are attuned to energy, she said finally. Our abilities come from understanding the life force that flows through all things. Most beings fear what they do not control. Humans, you are different. You face it without fear, and that unsettles me. Elias nodded thoughtfully. Humans survive by adapting, by facing what others run from. We rely on courage and creativity more than raw power. Maybe that's why your energy reacts differently to me. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she absorbed his words. Perhaps, she admitted, you think differently than other beings I have met. You do not act on instinct alone. You consider, you plan, you face the unknown. And sometimes we fail, Elias said with a small laugh. But failure teaches us as much as success. You seem careful, cautious, protective. I can respect that. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. Careful, yes. Protective, perhaps. I have not met many beings who could walk through Virelia without fear. Yet you inspire a sense of calm I do not understand. Elias smiled faintly. That's the thing about humans. We can be unpredictable, but we learn quickly. We adapt, and sometimes we inspire others to rethink what they thought was impossible. The storm outside began to subside slightly, though occasional flashes of green lightning illuminated the cavern. Lyra's hands glowed dimly, still reacting to the energy around them. She realized that the human's calmness was affecting her own abilities, disrupting her instincts, challenging her understanding, and opening a door she hadn't expected. As they moved deeper into the cavern, they discovered a smaller chamber filled with ancient artifacts. Strange devices, crystalline tools, and symbols etched in glowing patterns covered every surface. Elias crouched to examine a device that pulsed with light. This looks like it can store energy, he said. Or channel it. Fascinating. Lyra watched him, intrigued. You understand it quickly. How? Elias shrugged. I don't know yet. I observe, test, and adapt. It's what humans do. And sometimes curiosity leads to discovery. Lyra's hands trembled again, though this time she noticed it and allowed herself a small, thoughtful smile. Curiosity. You humans rely on it more than anything else. It is dangerous and yet admirable. They spent the next several hours examining the chamber, sharing knowledge and theories. Lyra demonstrated her psychic abilities, moving small objects with her mind and sensing subtle energy patterns. Elias observed carefully, taking notes in his digital pad, asking questions and offering insights. Together they began to form a strategy for understanding the planet and its mysterious energy. By the time the storm fully passed, a quiet bond had developed between them. It was fragile, tentative, and unspoken, but it was there. Two beings from entirely different worlds finding common ground in curiosity, courage, and respect. As they rested in the cavern, Elias looked at Lyra. You know, most explorers would have fled or hidden by now. They would never have stayed here observing and learning. But you stayed. You faced it. Lyra shook her head slightly, her hands glowing faintly. No, you misunderstand. I did not stay because I am brave. I stayed because you are different. Your calmness, your focus, it is unsettling, but it encourages me. I feel safer than I expected. Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Sometimes courage isn't about facing danger alone. It's about facing it together. We learn, we adapt, and we grow. That's how humans survive and thrive. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, though now it was a tremble of recognition rather than fear. Perhaps humans are not as fragile as my people believed. Perhaps there is strength in your unpredictability. Elias smiled, and perhaps aliens are capable of teaching humans things we could never imagine. We both have much to learn. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of hope she had not known in years. The human beside her, so steady, so fearless, had opened a door to possibilities she had never considered. She realized that together, they could face the challenges of Viralia, and perhaps even uncover secrets that neither species could achieve alone. As they settled in for the night, the cavern glowing softly with alien energy, Elias spoke quietly. Tomorrow we explore further. We see what this planet has to offer, and we see what we can learn from each other. Lyra nodded, her hands finally stilling, though her heart raced with anticipation. Yes, together. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of the crystal plants, as if the planet itself acknowledged the unlikely alliance forming within the cavern. For the first time, Lyra understood that this human was not just another explorer. He was a force of courage and curiosity, a being capable of changing the way she saw her world. And so, on the storm-swept planet of Viralia, an unusual alliance was born. One born of trust, courage, and mutual fascination. One that would challenge the boundaries of knowledge, power, and understanding in ways neither Elias nor Lyra could yet imagine. Together, they were ready to face the unknown. Captain Elias Drake stepped off the small landing shuttle onto the rocky surface of Viralia. The planet stretched endlessly under a pale green sky, its jagged mountains and deep valleys bathed in a soft, otherworldly light. Sensors beeped softly in his suit, warning him of fluctuating energy fields. Nothing he had ever encountered in the outer colonies looked like this. Elias adjusted his helmet and took a careful step forward. Every instinct told him to stay alert. Viralia was rumored to be home to a highly advanced alien species known for their psychic abilities. Most explorers avoided this place, either too afraid of what they might find or too cautious to risk the unknown. Elias, however, had never been one to let fear decide his path. He walked across the uneven terrain, scanning for signs of life. The ground was covered in crystal-like plants that shimmered faintly, bending slightly as if sensing his presence. He crouched to examine one, noticing its delicate, translucent leaves. The plants emitted a soft hum, almost like a whisper. Interesting, he muttered to himself. His voice echoed faintly in the air, though there was no one around to hear it. Then, without warning, the hum grew louder and more rhythmic. Elias froze. Something was coming toward him. From the shadows of a nearby cliff, a figure emerged. She was unlike any creature he had ever seen. Her skin glowed faintly in soft shades of blue and silver, and her eyes were a deep violet that seemed to peer directly into his mind. Long, flowing hair moved as if stirred by an invisible wind, and her movements were graceful, almost floating above the rocky surface. Elias slowly raised his hands, not in surrender, but as a gesture of peace. "I come in peace," he said, keeping his voice calm. The alien woman, Lyra, paused, her violet eyes narrowing slightly. Her hands trembled for just a moment, and Elias noticed the slight shaking. He frowned but did not move. Most humans would have stepped back or shown fear. Most aliens would have sensed fear and either attacked or fled. But Elias stood firm, calm, and composed. I have never seen a human like this," Lyra said softly, her voice melodic but tinged with uncertainty. "Why do you not fear me?" Elias smiled faintly. "Fear doesn't help anyone survive. I want to understand, not fight." Lyra blinked, clearly surprised. No other being in her experience had faced her without fear. Even her own people often hesitated when encountering strangers with unknown intentions. The tremor in her hands grew stronger, though her face remained composed. Elias took another step forward, slow and measured, careful not to make sudden movements. "I am Captain Elias Drake," he said. "I explore worlds, meet new civilizations, and learn about them. I mean no harm." Lyra's gaze softened slightly, though her hands continued to tremble. "I am Lyra of the Virelians. You are different. Most beings run or bow. You do neither." "I do neither because I believe there is more to gain from trust than fear," Elias replied. The alien studied him, her glowing eyes scanning every detail, perhaps reading intentions, or trying to sense emotions through some psychic channel. Elias remained still, showing nothing but calm confidence. After a moment, Lyra's hand stopped shaking, though the memory of the tremor lingered as if a new awareness had been awakened within her. Suddenly, a sharp vibration ran through the ground. Elias steadied himself. A wave of energy swept across the valley, and the crystals on the ground pulsed with light. Lyra tensed instinctively. "The planet. It reacts to our presence," she murmured. Elias nodded, glancing around. "I noticed it's alive in some way." The alien woman stepped closer, moving with an elegance that made the air around her seem to shimmer. No human has ever walked here freely, not without trembling before the unknown. "Why do you not?" Elias crouched to examine the glowing crystals. "Because I've faced the unknown before, and because I've learned that courage is not the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward despite it." Lyra paused, clearly processing his words. Her hands twitched slightly, betraying a mixture of fear and fascination. She had encountered many species in her travels, but none had shown such deliberate calm in the presence of Virelia's strange energies. She realized this human was unlike any other being. A sudden roar echoed through the valley. A massive creature emerged from a nearby ravine, its body covered in thick crystalline armor. It let out a sound that resonated in the air, shaking small stones from the cliffs. Lyra instinctively moved to protect herself, her hands glowing faintly as psychic energy began to gather. Elias did not flinch. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'm not afraid," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the valley. Lyra's eyes widened. Her hands, which had been steadying themselves, began to tremble uncontrollably. She had never met a being who could face such a creature without fear. The raw courage radiating from him was unfamiliar, almost disorienting. The creature stopped, tilting its head as if sensing something in Elias. Lyra's hands quivered, her psychic energy flickering. She tried to focus, to control the tremor, but it was impossible. Elias's calmness was disrupting her instincts, challenging the natural order she had known. Elias slowly reached out his hand, not in threat, but in an offering. "We don't have to fight," he said gently. "I will not hurt you, and I do not wish you harm." For a moment the creature paused, then slowly turned and disappeared back into the ravine. The ground settled. Lyra exhaled almost in disbelief. Her hands were still shaking, though now from astonishment rather than fear. You did not run," she whispered. You did not attack. You simply stood." Elias nodded. "Sometimes standing is the strongest thing you can do." Lyra looked at him, her mind racing. "Your courage. It is unnatural. Even to my people, this level of calm is rare. I feel unsettled and fascinated at the same time." Elias smiled faintly. "That's the thing about humans. We're unpredictable and we're resilient. We face what others fear, and sometimes we find strength we didn't know we had." Lyra lowered her glowing hands, though they still trembled slightly. She felt a strange mixture of admiration and curiosity. This human was unlike any being she had ever encountered. She realized with a shock she could barely admit to herself that humans were not only brave, they inspired others to reconsider what they thought was possible. Elias extended his hand again, this time an invitation rather than explanation. "Come with me. Let's explore this planet together. I want to learn about you. And maybe you can learn about humans." Lyra hesitated, her eyes scanning him, reading his expressions, sensing the authenticity in his words. Slowly she stepped forward, allowing a small, cautious smile to form. "Very well, Captain Drake, but know this. I am not easily impressed." Elias chuckled softly, adjusting his gear. "I don't expect to impress. I expect to understand." As they began walking deeper into the valley, the crystal plants around them shimmered more brightly, reacting to the unusual companionship forming between human and alien. The air was filled with an electric tension, not of danger but of possibilities. On this distant world, a new story was beginning, one where courage, curiosity, and empathy could bridge the gap between species. Elias glanced at Lyra and said, "You know, I've always believed that meeting someone from another world isn't about proving who's stronger. It's about finding common ground." Lyra's hands trembled slightly again, though this time she noticed it and allowed herself a small, genuine smile. "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as I thought," she admitted quietly. Elias smiled. "And perhaps aliens are more capable of being surprised than they realize." Together they moved forward into the unknown, each step a mixture of caution and excitement. Veralia was a planet full of mysteries, but Elias and Lyra had discovered something far more remarkable than its energy fields or strange creatures. They had discovered the beginning of trust, and the strange, unshakable courage of a human who refused to be afraid. The wind shifted across the valley, carrying the faint hum of the crystal plants as if whispering approval. Somewhere deep within, Lyra realized that this encounter would change everything. For her, for Elias, and perhaps for the future of both their worlds. And so, the first contact on Veralia ended not with fear or battle, but with curiosity, courage, and a trembling pair of hands that had never before met such fearless resolve.